All right, we're live.
All right, thank you. Good evening, everyone. It is 10 o'clock my time, so please bear with me. But I now call to order the 2119th regular meeting of the City of College Place City Council. Sherry, will you please take roll call?
Mayor Hernandez,
Present.
Councilmember Jessup,
Present.
Councilmember Cleveland,
Present.
Councilmember Peterson,
Present.
Councilmember Williams,
Present.
Councilmember Sherman, present. Councilmember Boyle, present. And Councilmember Espinoza has asked to be excused. We do have a quorum.
Wonderful, thank you. So let's move along. It's time for public comment. Did anyone submit a comment in advance, Sherry?
Pledge of Allegiance.
Did I miss that? All right, will you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you so much. Now it's time for public comment. Sherry, did anyone submit a comment in advance?
I did not receive any comments.
Okay, so if there's anyone in actual or virtual attendance who would like to speak, please raise your hand now. If you're connected by phone, please press *9 to raise your hand.
No.
All right, thank you. It's time for the consent agenda, which consists of the agenda for tonight, June 27th, 2023, the council meeting minutes, May 23rd, 2023, the Southwest Sewer Project acceptance, the bid awardance for the purchase of new Ram 2500 Pro Master Van with sewer camera system, the appointment of Claudia Santinello to the Utility and Transportation Commission, the cancellation of the July 4th, 2023 council workshop, and the excuse the absence of Councilmember Espinoza.
I'll make a
Are
motion
there-
to consent agenda as presented. I'll second.
All right, all in favor, say aye. Any opposed? All right, the ayes have it, the motion is passed. No presentations or public hearings tonight, so we're going to move straight on to action items, of which there are 5 action items on the agenda tonight. The first action item is the lift station number 5 replacement design fee amendment by Mr. McAndrews.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. We've talked about this project a few times with our sewer lift station relocation over on Southwest First. JUB Engineers has been engineering this. And as we've talked before, as we realize the impact to the road, decided to make it into a little bit more of a whole road project and involve road and sidewalks and improving that corridor. Through that process, additional surveying has been needed, and then JUB has been working to make some site visits along with city staff with an attempt to educate the citizens, the residents on what's going on and work with them on impacts to their property. So that being said, there's going to be some additional costs for the engineering portion of this. So we're recommending increasing the authorized amount up to $387,880, which is a $24,230 increase. Any questions?
Sorry. Okay, let's go to council members for questions or comments. Mr. Jessup,
Not at the moment, thank you.
Mr. Cleveland,
No questions?
Mr. Peterson,
No questions.
Ms. Williams,
No questions, thank you.
Ms. Sherman,
No question.
Ms. Boyle.
No questions.
All right, if there's no other Anyone else wanting to have any discussion or questions? Do we have a motion from council?
I'll motion to allow Public Works Director to sign contract amendment for the lift station number 5 replacement project, increasing the amount authorized for design services to $387,880.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Any additional discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the ayes have it and the motion is passed. Mr. McAndrews, you're still next with the award of the Northeast Damson Avenue reconstruction design.
Yes, so, if you guys are familiar, we added a picture kind of last minute. Sherry, you can pull that up. Maybe, Northeast Damson Avenue between Cargill and Rose Street is kind of left incomplete. The road just narrowed down. From this picture, you can really see kind of the issue we have here. So back in 2019, 2020, I think, when C Street was being built, PBS Engineering started on engineering for this. And ultimately, we realized, we were told that it wasn't going to be able to be funded. And so the city had PBS discontinue engineering. They were up about 90% engineering. That being said, the State Transportation Improvement Board, TIB, has now indicated there's funding for that. And so we've re-engaged PBS to complete the engineering, which would widen the rest of that road, include sidewalks, stormwater design, water sewer upgrades, lighting, and also a rectangular rapid flashing beacon crosswalk across Rose Street. There's some pedestrian traffic that crosses there. I think there's a bus stop, and it's not really a safe place to cross as it is. So PBS went back and revisited their project to where they're at with 90% design. Unfortunately, there are components of that surveying and some aspects of it that have to be redone just because of the amount of time that's gone by. And so their proposed scope and fee to complete the engineering for this project is $145,659.91. So after adding about a 10% contingency, the city is recommending, or Public Works is recommending that we go ahead and authorize city administrator to sign the agreement for up to $160,000.
All right. Councilmember Jessup,
At the moment, thank you.
Councilmember Cleveland,
No questions. Well, I'm glad this is moving forward since I usually take that straight to get back to my house from council meetings. Yeah, I just go down College Avenue and I go up C and then I go down Dampton, then go to Smithton.
Oh.
Councilmember Peterson,
Nothing, thank you.
I don't live with my mom anymore.
Councilmember Williams,
No questions, thank you.
Councilmember Sherman,
No questions.
and Councilmember Boyle.
No questions.
All right, so is there a motion from the council?
I'd like to motion to authorize the city administrator to sign agreement for PBS Engineering to complete design for the Northeast Damson Avenue reconstruction project from Northeast Cargill Avenue to Northeast Rose Street.
I'll second.
Any other discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the ayes have it and the motion is passed. All right, let's see, still up. Mr. McAndrew will present on the federal classification of Southwest Homestead, which is at Whitman to the end of road, and Southwest 4th of Homestead to the west city limit, and proposed east-west road, which is Murray Boulevard and College to Teal.
Yeah, thank you. So we've talked about this before. As we're able to get roads federally classified, that usually means more opportunities for grants. And so looking at roads in the city, we've come to the realization that Southwest Homestead Southwest Fourth, and then the future east-west road that will come off of College Avenue going into the new development area. Down across from the high school, need to be reclassified. So this is a resolution in support of taking these to request them to be federally classified. So it would make Homestead and Fourth both minor collectors, and the proposed East Road a major collector. Yeah, I guess if we have any questions.
Okay, Councilmember Jessup,
No, thank you.
Councilmember Cleveland,
No questions?
Councilmember Peterson,
No questions, thank you.
Councilmember Williams,
No questions, thank you.
Councilmember Sherman,
No questions.
Councilmember Boyle.
No questions.
All right, then do we have a motion from council?
We need to come up with questions for Robert. This is easy.
Thanks.
They have to relate to this, but we ask in the meeting of
Yeah.
life for,
I think so. I'll make hang on, I don't have it up in front. I'm just looking at the map. I'll make a motion to adopt resolution number 23-03, which adds the following to federal classifications in the city. Southwest Homestead Avenue, Whitman to South City Limit, minor collector, Southwest Fourth Street, Homestead to West City Limit, minor collector. Proposed East-West Road, College to Teal, major collector. I'll second.
Any discussion? All right, let's vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the ayes have it and the motion is passed. Well, since it seems to be the Mr. McAndrews show tonight, you have one more chance to find questions for him as he discussed the resolution to accept State Department of Ecology Water Quality Combined Financial Assistance Agreement for Enhanced Maintenance Plan and Implementation. Make it any longer.
Yeah, sorry, resolution.
John has a question for us.
Mike wrote the last one, if it's any consolation. Again, this is another one we've talked about before, kind of in two separate pieces. The project in the 23 to 28 capital facility plan was originally two projects. It was one for the design of the decant facility, which we've talked about before, and another one for the purchase of a new Vector truck, which we've also talked about before. Ecology had given us the green light to go ahead and move forward on both of those at the risk of if we didn't come to this agreement, we'd be on our own for the funding of what we've already spent, but they were kind of taking their time putting the agreement together to make it easier on them and probably for us, although it probably a little confusion sometimes. They combined both into one agreement, which is for the enhanced maintenance plan. So part of this, in order to qualify, we had to do a stormwater enhanced maintenance plan, which was putting together a plan saying with a new Vector truck, with the decant facility, our maintenance is going to improve in these ways. And so they've approved that plan, and now they've put together this agreement for us. And so we've already ordered the Vector truck, and we've already given JV engineers the go ahead to move on and design the decant facility. So really this is just to, adopt the resolution, agreeing to accept the funding for that. Any questions?
Mr. Jessup,
No, this is big time. It's been fantastic. It's all rolling. So thank you all for the hard work. And then I'm glad that Department of Ecology came around. Helps a lot.
Me too.
Mr. Cleveland,
No questions?
Mr. Peterson,
No questions.
Ms. Williams.
No questions.
Oh, come on, Ms. Sherman.
Well, I am trying to figure out the $665,000. That's listed in the dollar amount, when the Vector truck is $750. The decant, I'm not the financing, it's just the financing agreement part, is that what does it matter that the Vector truck is more?
No,
Trying to
what
give you
was
a easy
approved in the capital facility plan? No, that's a great question. What was approved in the capital facilities plan? We had a higher dollar amount for the Vector truck than what it actually was.
Oh.
And so the original capital facility plan approved the spending more money than what it needed to be. So the actual costs, in the city, well, the cost to the city is $99,750, but the cost for the Vector truck and the decant design together is that $665,000.
Got it, thank you.
I don't remember the actual dollar amount for the Vector truck. I apologize.
Well, you can look it up.
All right, thank you, Ms. Sherman. Ms. Boyle.
No question.
All right, if there is not any additional discussion, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to adopt resolution number 23-037, which authorizes Public Works Director to sign the grant agreement with the State Department of Ecology Water Quality Combined Financial Assistance Program for enhanced maintenance plan and implementation.
Is there a second?
Second.
If there's no further discussion, all in favor say aye.
I,
Any opposed? All right, the ayes have it and the motion is passed. Thank you, Mr. McAndrews. You can take a rest now.
Thank you.
All right, so next we're going to call Mr. Ricker to the hot seat. And it's the last action item. And it's regarding the City Hall addition, a survey and geotechnical reporting.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, we are under contract with Meyer Architecture and Engineering to do the design work for the addition on the City Hall. And that contract did not include geotechnical work for like the foundation work or the site survey. So we solicited multiple firms that do this sort of thing. We did get 2 responses back. One of them was not able to meet the timeline on both of our needs. And so PBS is the firm that was the responsible bidder, and we're asking that you approve the contract. The amount of their proposal came to $30,900, and that includes surveying the entire campus. We did ask for 2 different quotes on the surveying part, just focusing on around the City Hall building, and an expanded survey for the whole campus. And the amount was like $3,000 additional to complete the entire campus survey. And that would include setting pins that may be missing. And so we're recommending that we go with the entire campus survey since we have them out here. And then there's some additional recording fees for the surveying work and whatnot, plus any possible overages that we might have. So we're asking for a total amount of $33,990. Any questions? Questions? You only get one?
Mr. Jessup,
No, thank you.
Mr. Cleveland,
No question?
Mr. Peterson,
Yeah. What is this again?
It's
Is this a circus? Go ahead.
It's a survey of the
Right.
site. They need that in order to, they'll capture all the sort of details out there, the property pins, of course, but also like the placing the curbs, trees, significant shrubbery, that type of stuff, so that they know when they're doing the site part of the design, because there is some parking lot improvements and there'll be some minor stormwater stuff that's involved. They need that sort of information around the facility.
Okay.
And then the geotechnical part about it is they will actually bring a rig out to bore down. They'll get samples to figure out what our soil types are. And that will help with any of the stormwater design, and it also helps with the design of the foundation for the building to make sure that that's designed.
Oh, wow,
properly.
okay. All that for 30 grand, huh? Yeah,
Yeah,
well, no, I mean, nothing,
it is quite a bit of work
Yeah.
that goes along with it.
yeah.
But before we put a building there, we want to make sure it fits.
We want to make sure it fits. We want to not gonna settle.
Oh, good. Thanks.
Ms. Williams,
No questions. Thank you.
Ms. Sherman,
No questions.
Ms. Boyle?
No questions.
All right, there's no additional discussion. Is there a motion?
Yeah, I would move to authorize the city administrator to accept the agreement with PBS Engineering and Environmental in an amount not to exceed $33,990.
I'll second.
Any additional discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the ayes have it and the motion is passed. All right, that's it for our action items. We have a few administrative reports. So the first one is, let's see, report, Mr. Rickard and Mr. Hanson will present on the Lions Park update.
Thank you again, Mayor. So tonight I have Mr. Brian Hanson with us from Anderson Perry. He is the engineer lead on the Lions Park renovation project. And I asked him to come along to answer any questions and also kind of give us an update on where we're at in the permitting process at the state and fed level. As most of you probably have heard, and by looking through the packet, that we're not going to be under construction this summer. We were hoping to be under construction in spring of this year. And so without getting into too much of the details, I'll let Brian kind of take it over and explain to you all why. Brian?
Sure. Thank you, council members, for having me tonight. In your packet was a roughly 3-page letter with a whole lot of dates in it. I won't read all the dates, but I'll give the high level picture of where we are and kind of what's led to the schedule shift. So at a high level, there are about 8 permits that the park needs, and those different permits all relate, or some of them relate to the whole park, some of them relate specifically to one thing. For instance, the splash pad has its own permit from the Department of Health. But the pond and the creek renovation is the biggest piece of that. And so permitting that has been completed, I'll just start from the top. The SEPA, the State Environmental Protection Act, was completed through the city in February. The city is the easiest thing to get things through. The next item on there is the US Corps 404 dredge and fill permit. That is mostly related to the pond and the creek. And I'm going to come back to that one. I'll just kind of list all of the permits here. The following in the letter is the Ecology Washington Department of Ecology Section 401 Water Quality Certificate. And then there's also an Washington State Department of Ecology Stormwater General Permit. That one was issued in April. There's a Washington State Department of Fish and Wildlife hydraulic permit, which has been issued. There's a Washington State Department of Health permit. This relates to the splash pad. We have resubmitted to their comments, so that one's still outstanding. There's and then from a funding situation, we have the Department of Ecology stormwater grant funding, and we have 3 RCO grants. And they all, while not providing permits, also have their own reviews that they do to allow us to get to the point where we bid. So the big picture of all the dates of what's in here is that with all of those agencies I just listed, the hope and the goal was to have everything into those agencies and have them doing their review and everything moving at the same time. And ultimately, what happened is when we got into the for instance, the core permit for the dredge and fill, they basically said, okay, we have to stop our review until you get completion of the Department of Ecology 401 water quality certificate. So the core stopped. So once we got that ecology certificate, then the core started again. And then once the Corps had done some of their review, then they sent it out. They sent it out to National Marine and Fisheries. They sent it out to the EPA. They sent it out to US Fish and Wildlife. And so that permit then is waiting for the other federal entities to respond. And that stacks yet again in that RCO has to send one of the funding packages to National Park Service, who won't start their review until the core permit is reviewed. So while the ultimate goal was to push all the things we had to all the people at the same time, what ultimately happened was instead of everything going forward like this, it became a domino structure. And it got to the point where we were at about a month ago, where we realized we couldn't knock all the dominoes down in time. The pond and the creek have to be built in the in-water work window, which I have the dates in here, but it's basically June to September. And we got to a point where we couldn't knock all the dominoes down and then get bid to have a contractor in until the last week of the in-water work window if everything went perfectly. And that was the point where we had a conversation with Robert and Mike and John to shift what the thinking was. And so I'll talk about what that shift looks like, but just an update on where everything's at. Again, SEPA is reviewed or has been approved. The 404 dredge permit through the Corps. We got EPA concurrence 2 weeks ago. It's still in US Fish and Wildlife for approval. Once they give the Corps the approval that the Corps needs, then the Corps can issue that permit. So that's the last hurdle on that permit. Once the Corps provides us approval of the dredge and fill permit, then we can submit everything to RCO and they will pass the package on to National Park Service, which is where they get the funding for one of the 3 grants that the park, specifically the grant that funds the pond and creek improvements. National Park Service will go through their process to review everyone else's process. And hopefully, we expect that with everything we've jumped through, hopefully they say, yes, we're in agreement with all these other reviews. We're good to go. But those are the last couple dominoes to knock down. Before then, we can take the bid package, put it out for bid, and get to construction. So with those last couple dominoes to be knocked down, the goal and the plan is to bid the project this fall. Part of what you do get by bidding this fall, instead of us having bid it this summer, is we would expect you'll get a more competitive bid environment. You won't be asking contractors that already have a full book to bid on a large park improvement project. And we also be able to have a slightly longer bid window instead of the consolidated window we were planning on to try to hit this in-water work window. So we're hopeful that that means that there will be better pricing for the project. But the goal is to put out the bid package this fall so that we can hit the ground running with the contractor in 2024. That's what I have on schedule. I also brought more fun things, which is there are some plans that can be put up on the screen that I can talk through what's going on in the park. But I would welcome any questions on the schedule and the permitting first.
Do we have any questions?
I have a.
Yeah.
Okay, I can't see who raised their hand first, so I'll trust.
This is Heather. So are any of these surveys or any of the permits and everything that you're getting done right now, are any of them subject to need to be redone if we're waiting for next year, or they have like a good shelf life?
No, they have a good shelf life.
Okay.
So,
And is this not a typical process or like, and I'm not trying to say like,
Yeah.
why couldn't we anticipate this,
Sure.
but why couldn't we? Anticipate?
yep, it is it is not a typical process.
Yeah,
Part of it not being a typical process is there's 3 different RCO grants and a DOE grant, and all their money come from
that-
different places.
Yeah.
And they all have a different process. There have been a few times where going through, let's say, the Corps process, that we got partway into it and they went, oh, you're getting money from over here, you also have to do this.
Got it. That makes sense.
The latest one actually was the US Fish and Wildlife. We were told by the Corps that, you know, the last hurdle was to get it through EPA, and we got it through EPA and we went, great. So we get our, and then, oh no, we forgot about Fish and Wildlife, or forgot to tell you, or, you know.
Right.
It was like, no, it's in with Fish and Wildlife, we don't have that yet. So
Yeah.
there have been a few of those, where the interaction between the number of funding sources and the number of places that the money is coming from has created a different interaction on permitting than we would typically see on the
Got
project.
it. That makes sense. Thanks, Brian.
And that's why I brought him here tonight.
So is it safe to say that it's Mike's fault for getting all that grant money?
Right, yeah.
Absolutely.
Next time, let's just have a bake sale.
Couple questions.
Right.
I have a Couple questions. This year, and I hate to bring this up, how much of the farmer's market is left as far as the life? Is it, it's running till,
End of September.
is there any thought to moving it back? I know there'd be confusion and there'd be people coming over here, but, I'm just wondering if that's something not to decide right now, but something to consider because of the environment over there when it gets hotter in July and August and whatnot.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, you guys are already thinking of that, but yeah, that might be something we need to work on or not worry about it. The other thing is 2024 too optimistic? You know, as far as it disrupting the farmer's market again over there. I mean, so you're gonna have bids go out. I mean, what?
So schedule wise, if we bid in fall, we would anticipate, let's say, a 4-week bid window. We would open those bids. We would select the lowest bidder, and then you as a council, assuming you go through the process to award that bid, that's, let's say, a couple months process, depending on the contracts and when council meetings falls and whatnot. So a bid in the fall gets it so that we get to a point where a contractor is able to begin work in theory, January. Maybe you wouldn't want to start work in January, depending on what the weather's like, but construction wise, there's plenty of time in 2024 if you start in the spring and work through the in-work window, June, July, August,
Yeah.
to get the park improvements.
I think I was thinking more on the lines of, we've gone through these dates in the process. And of course, we don't know what we don't know, type of thing. And so, we'll have to come back and revisit this, right? Because there could be other surprises perhaps, even as we go into. Or how do you feel about that sort of call? I don't want to put you on.
Yeah.
Confident. And I mean, that, obviously that could interfere with, then it delays it and now we're into late spring of construction or, so. And all hypotheticals, but,
Right. Totally understand them. Absolutely fair questions. We've been asking the same questions of the Corps and of RCO, and RCO doesn't. RCO has been the buffer between us and National Park Service, but what we are hearing from the Corps is, yeah, you're really actually almost there. And what we're hearing from RCO and National Park Service is that given when these grants were awarded, this project will kind of move fairly rapidly through National Park Service process because they're looking at things it kind of like in the order that they gave the grant. So
you asked that question. Is there a shelf life on these grants? Is that what you just?
Well, I was asking more about the permitting, but grants is a good
Is there a
question.
shelf life on these grants?
Like the time by which we have to spend it. Well, on most grants, when you're in the process.
Yeah.
And you're showing movement.
We've had to
You're able to-
reapply a couple times, I think. to some of the grants.
There are timelines in the agreements, for when the money needs to be spent and the project completed. They also have processes for extensions, which is, very common. I mean, it's
Right,
really,
right.
An extension on a small, historic preservation grant, recently. So, yeah.
we will likely need to file an extension for, I think, 2 of the RCO grants, but that's not an uncommon bit for it.
Just curious, more than, yeah. Thank you.
You don't actually want to have that big sale?
Yeah.
So I'm making an assumption here, but I feel like I gotta ask, I heard a lot of hesitation or grant monies and so forth has to do with the pond, the creek, and that kind of thing. Am I assuming then any of the grant money also hinders anything else that could be done around the park, such as sidewalks, electrical engineering, trees, lighting, ballpark, all that kind of stuff over there outside the scope of the creek and the pond? That also, we're still waiting on permits and grant money for even all of that as well?
Essentially, yes, because it's all at the park and it's all happening at the same time.
It's all in one
It all got pulled into the same SEPA, which means
There's not like I can do this part of the project while I'm holding and waiting on this one type of thing?
as far as permitting goes, yes, that is true. It is all basically one big.
There's overlap on the funding components, there's overlap on the way it's all constructed and put together. There's overlap with when we can work the work windows like in streams and Creekwood. It's a tangled mess.
Things that would add complexity.
Yes, we contemplated that early on in the process, that maybe we break this into phases, 2 or even 3 phases. And because of the complexity of it, the size of it, we were looking at increased, construction costs by doing that. And then just design costs, because now you're pulling things apart and you have to really thoroughly think through how it all fits together.
So that would be my next question then, because I feel like the last year, about every other third council meeting, it's like, oh, sorry, we have to delay, here's an extra 20 grand on the bid, here's an extra 30 on the bid, oh, we gotta delay because of parts and stuff. I know we can't foresee the future, but what does that look like in terms of delaying this another seemingly year?
Well, we haven't got any bids, so there won't be an increase. It'll just be the.
Yeah, I guess, that's right.
Well, so far, we haven't expended all of the resources, under the contract with Anderson Herrick for the summer. And that doesn't mean that we won't get to a point in the process where there might be an amendment. And now that door has been opened.
Thank you, council member.
And they've seen how easily you guys spend money, but.
In charge of the bake sale.
I will say from a construction cost standpoint, we have a fairly flat construction cost this year, basically this year, as opposed to the last 2 years where construction costs were just skyrocketing. It feels like we've reached a point where there is some amount of equilibrium. So, if we were hypothetically able to bid it today to the same bid in fall, what we would expect is that any contractor that were to bid it today is likely, with the goal to start this year, is likely has a full book, and you're gonna see a premium in that. Whereas we bid it in the fall when they don't have a full book, you're likely not to see that same program.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions? All right, it's quite disappointing, but thank you for explaining that all to us. All right, so we're gonna give you a break and let Mr. Ricker talk about the naming of the council room.
Were there any questions about the site plan that was in there or the design? Does anybody have any? We're at nearly 100%. So this is kind of your last crack to say, hey, you know, what about that? So.
Great.
Doesn't look like it. Okay. Thank you, Brian. So ready to go. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all for having me. Have a nice evening.
Thank you, Mr. Hanson. Thank you. I didn't mean to rush him off. I forgot he said that was the first part.
Thank you.
He's gone now.
All right, John, you want to talk about the council room naming then?
Sure. So,
Love it.
there was some last minute updates to this. Harry Amont, with former professor at Walla University, was able to reach out to Marge and provide a little bit of information additional, which most of you are probably familiar with. We did not let on that we were considering her as a candidate for naming the council chambers after her, but I'm sure the way things spread and she'll probably know tomorrow morning. So she's, as you all know, she's been on the council, was on the council for 27 years, the longest serving council person in the city of College Place. It's history. She started on in position 1, did that for a few years, and then she left for a few years and then was reelected in 2002 until recently when she didn't run again. She was instrumental in getting the new city hall. It was one of the things that she ran on. Our city hall at the time was pretty decrepit. I've been told that it had a really hideous hand-painted city hall sign on it. Although I've never seen a picture of it. I'd love if somebody has pictures of that. I'd love to see that. But it was combined with the fire department. And she was, one of the council members that was, got it approved for construction, and very proud of that. She was also part of getting bringing Walmart here. And she almost took a good beating on that. She won her reelection by only 8 votes, she says, to an opposing candidate that did not like Walmart. She's a sweet lady. I think most of you all know her. And you probably all have, your own fond memories of her on the council, working with her. Terry did run into a couple of former council members this last weekend, Steve Pollock. He said Marge Nyhagen served with sensitivity, reliability, and wisdom. She knew how to persist on an initiative until it was accomplished. She was a supportive colleague and was both positive and highly effective. And then Jim Bluff. Marge Nyhagen was a person of strong opinions in a good way. She contributed a great deal to the growth and development of the city of College Place. So, there you have it.
So
Up
to
to you.
be like the Marge Nyhagen council, or what are you thinking?
I think typically it would be like the last name,
Is Nyhagen?
but yeah, I mean, that would be helpful if you guys had a preference on the naming. It could simply be the Nyhagen room, the Nyhagen council room.
Marge's quarters.
Yeah.
Maggie's hangout. Are we gonna?
I
rename-
myself like them. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna ask if, are we gonna rename the council when Lauren ends up surpassing 27 years?
Yeah, but Lauren's not that sweet, so.
Well, shots fired, you're never gonna get nice comments.
At least not from.
Depends on how much you pay, Lauren.
Not while you're alive.
No.
So I'm hoping, I still haven't gotten the word back from the contractor, but I am pushing to have our first meeting in there on July 25th. That's the last council meeting. Now, I don't think that that would be a good evening to also dedicate and rename it, but
Why not?
well, just the logistics of making that all happen and making sure that we're able to invite, former council members. Joe Overland and all that, and still, in the midst of not knowing for sure if the room's gonna be ready.
If they never can.
Yes, and working out the quirks and.
Cool.
Yeah,
We need more bureaucratic
So-
red tape, permits as well, right?
no, there's no, we issued all those.
Yeah,
There was no grant money involved.
Take the seismic stuff work. So what how does this work? Is this like what's the process?
Well, I think,
It's not a vote.
it's not a vote, but there could be a resolution that is passed, I suppose. A proclamation, and maybe could provide more feedback on that at the next.
Council meeting, you're saying?
We just needed a general consensus.
I agree.
That's
No,
what we
I-
want to do.
I fully support it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm all for it.
Great.
I dare anybody to object.
I was gonna say, if anybody's opposed, you're gonna answer to me.
Yeah,
There was someone we appointed and she, and she voted, no, she was fine with it, but she didn't want them to have a unanimous thing. They feel like they had to do
Yeah.
something.
well, that was,
It was a Marine after all.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully can stay a secret long enough to surprise her, but, we'll see, but hopefully people will let her be pleasantly surprised and honored. at the
This
time
is
they have-
really, and the timing, that's, yeah.
I think I kind of like using her first name because everyone knows her by that.
I do too.
It's not
I
like
agree.
being known as,
What was that, Norma?
I said, I agree. I like the Marge Nyhagen.
yeah, I think more people know her by her first name.
Yeah.
So do we want to, like, the Marge Nyhagen Council Room or Marge, because we do use that room for many, many other purposes, besides council, so planning commission, it could just be the Marge
Nyhagen
Nyhagen
multi-purpose lounge.
room, but yeah.
Well, you can call it Chambers, Marge Nyhagen Chambers.
Chambers is nice, that kind of covers. Okay,
Well, isn't it still council chambers at City Hall and they use it for, I think
Yeah.
that can still be council chambers, it is where we meet, but other things happen there anyway. That might be
however you want.
council chambers,
I like
Mark, in council chambers.
I like council chicken, sit down as abrupt, isn't it?
Yeah,
I'll probably change my mind in 5 minutes.
that's fine. He's not making a
It's
sign
okay, you're
tonight.
doing right now. He's writing it down.
It's being recorded. We'll play it
Yeah,
back.
no, I like that. That's a great
Like your
idea.
council
Her
chambers.
letters.
It's a great idea.
Thank you all.
Not too.
Thank you.
All right, then there's,
And,
okay, moving on. There's 3 informational reports in your agenda for you to review. We do not have an executive session tonight, so that takes us to closing items. Is there any other business for good of the order? I see a hand waving.
Yeah, I'm sorry, it's me again. Hey, is it the well update? How is it doing? Well said. And I guess the question is, are we still under a water emergency?
Yes, we are still technically under water emergency. Mike and I had discussed that and felt like it was appropriate to leave the emergency in place until the well is online. That being said, well 3 is back online and is repaired and functional.
The repair, the replaced one.
They repaired, rebuilt, rewound the motor. At well 3,
They rewound it?
yes.
Oh, that's right. They were gonna dip it or rewound it.
They rewound it.
I stand
They did
corrected.
it in record time.
Stand corrected.
Quicker than I,
Right?
Yeah,
it was way faster than I
and it's,
expected.
And how long is
actually
the
had-
warranty?
and it's humming,
It's already expired.
and it's humming right along, huh?
Yeah, so that's working. Well 6, on the other hand, which is the one that's being built and is on standby, is on hold, if you will. Is, as of Thursday, Sierra Electric, I believe it was, said the MSD, so the master switchboard was slated for delivery to them on Friday. I have not gotten confirmation, but I have no reason to believe it wasn't. The VFD, the variable frequency drive, is supposed to ship this Friday. I'm hesitant, I guess, in saying that because these companies, these manufacturers won't update the ship date until they miss it. And so,
No, 2 day.
But-
But
But we were down a well, we're gonna be back up, we're gonna be back to normal. And the well you're speaking of is above and beyond, correct, where we were 6 months ago, a year ago.
well 6, which is the one that we're waiting on parts for the project to be finished, is the replacement of well 2, which is still kind of limping along. That's the one where the casing has risen.
Right.
It's still in use, but it's kind of
Yeah,
not ideal.
got
So once that one is online, we're gonna feel a lot better and we'll be in a lot better shape.
it.
Well, number 7 is the one that's being drilled down by Teal Road by our new lift station, down by Stone Creek, and it is scheduled to start drilling. I think we're expecting the contractor to mobilize into July, beginning of August. So, but that's a several month process to drill. And then we have to go through the whole process, of building the well house and all that again too. So it's ways out before it'll be functional well, but it's moving along.
So operating wells right now, one's rising off the, we get that, but so
It's
we
still
have,
functional, but we try not to use it.
We have-
We have well 3, which is one that went down that we had issues with, we took down and had repaired, and that's our most prominent well. That's the one down on Lamperty and Larch.
yeah,
We have well 4, which is the newest one across the highway off Peppers Bridge in McMinn. And then we have well 2. Well, 1's taken offline, sorry.
and the well by the water tanks are, that's well.
But that's well 6, that's the
6.
new one that's being built, that's not complete yet.
That's right, okay. Right, okay. Yeah, so we have 3 wells right now.
Currently,
With
one of them
limping.
limping along, but
Got
it's
it.
functional.
Got it, okay. Okay,
Had good conversations too, because the last one we discussed in council was like trying to have a backup.
Yeah, and so we actually had a couple of years ago that motor replaced and upsized. And the company that did that for us rebuilt the one that they took out and they still had it, so they were going to rent it back to us. And we had them scheduled to come and put it in, they were gonna give us a great rate. And the day they were supposed to come, well, we found out a couple days ahead of time, but we found out the day they were supposed to come give us that one. Our current one was gonna be ready and would be delivered, so we did end up having to rent the old one again. If that makes sense, so.
Right, but it's available in case something happens, like because we discussed
Push came to shove.
backup.
I think Lane Funk would be willing to rent it to us again, if that's what they have, if they still have it, at that point.
so the well that's lifting, that's the casing that's coming up, isn't it, out of the ground? Okay,
Whole casing, foundation, everything,
oh,
come up out of here.
yeah, okay,
It's,
so.
it really is impressive.
So that's gonna be, I mean, that's gonna be mothballed at some point. I mean, is there,
The goal is to, yeah, is
with
to
this seven?
shut it off, discontinue, abandon it.
Yeah,
Try just tapping the top of it with a hammer to try to get it to settle back down.
but cutting,
Fun as that.
cutting torch, yeah. Huh,
No, public works staff have gone, because the well casing's lifting and there's a whole pipe train that comes off of that. And so
yeah,
they've gone and added shims and raised the whole thing up, so we didn't end up with,
ripping it off.
yeah.
You know, I just gotta say now, kudos to you and your staff of, if I understand this correctly, testing the well that was rewound. So there was preventive maintenance that was performed by you guys. So this thing didn't fail in August or something. So I mean, once again, thank you to you and your staff because, yeah.
I will be sure to relay that message.
Yeah, that's, yeah. Yeah, but that's sharp, so thank you.
All right, any other business? All right, I just want to remind you all that as long as there's 4 council members in attendance, there's still a quorum. And Sherry, you will leave the Zoom on until there is less than. So at this time, do we have a motion to conclude the meeting?
So move, Councilmember Williams.
All right, is there a second?
One second.
Oh, thank God, it's almost 11 o'clock time over here. Okay, so if there's no objection, the meeting is concluded at 7:57 PM. Thanks, everybody.